What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I am the 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and once a month I host online conversations for fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central and Doveman Care. And Sunday afternoon, October 4th, we're broadcasting live here. And for those who do and those who don't know, Sunday afternoons, 5 p.m., we host an epic conversation called Black Canada Talking. And what's Black Canada Talking? It is an online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And today we have another epic conversation happening. And I'm just going to introduce him first before I bring him on. Special guest today, and he has some special guests. Dr. Vidoll Regisford. He is a registered psychotherapist and counseling practitioner with the Ontario College of Registered Psychotherapists and the Ontario Association of Mental Health Professionals. Additionally, he is a certified trauma and critical incident stress management specialist, serving police services, air traffic services, child protection agencies, and insurance companies. For more than 30 years, and he only looks 30 years old, by the way, he has worked with children and youth in a variety of organizations, children's mental health and recreation settings, incorporating various treatment modalities to bring out the change and wellness for his clients. He's also delivered training and skills stops to foster parents, caregivers, caseworkers, social workers, leaders, and management of detention centers, foster homes, and group homes. As you can tell, I could go on for the next hour, but we only got an hour. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring Dr. Vidoll on with us. Dr. Vidoll, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well, very well. A bit of a overcast here, but doing well here in Toronto.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking time in your positive, productive schedule today to join us for this important conversation. The conversation that we're having today is about Black Canadians and mental health. And just high level, because we have some special friends that you're going to bring on with us. What is the state, in your opinion, right now when it comes to a number of Black Canadians and mental health?
Well, I think what has effectively happened is what has been hidden for some time has come to the surface. I think Black Canadians at all strata have been experiencing mental health or lack of mental wellness for some time. But the recent events, the pandemic, the disproportionate number of Black and Indigenous persons, as well as people of color who are diagnosed with COVID-19 or have been diagnosed with COVID-19, those who have lost their lives, certainly across in the United States, the events of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the host of things go on, have really brought this to the forefront. I think what we are really dealing with is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, Dr. Vibe.
That is concerning, like you say, the tip of the iceberg. That is concerning. Now, just a little background for everyone who's watching this or listening to this live on replay. Originally, I wanted to have Dr. Vidoll come on and talk about Black Canadian men and mental health. But he said, no, Dr. Vibe. We're going to have a little bit of a different curve. We're going to do a little turn today. So we're going to be bringing on some ladies onto the conversation. But I want to know, why did you want to have this from a lady's perspective?
Well, I think it's a couple of things have happened. Certainly in my practice and sort of consulting work that I do with organizations, we have focused on Black men, Black youth. And more recently, I've encountered a number of Black women of color within organizations at middle management, senior management ranks, who have experienced what I would term various degrees of racial trauma or moral injuries that have resulted in either they are unemployed or right now they may be on sick leave or long-term disability. And it's not a story that we've been talking about. I think we've assumed that because of the ascension of women within the workplace and women at high levels of organization, even in the ranks of at the CEO level, C-suite level, I think we've mistakenly thought that Black women of color have ascended to those roles. And for those who have, at very least, ascended to the middle management ranks, we've not talked about the stress or the strain that has occurred for them to maintain those positions, let alone survive in those positions. As a matter of fact, I think it's Canada's little known secret.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? Time is fleeting, so as long as BIA Media can do it, I'd like us to be introduced to all the friends that you've brought on. So if we can get them all on screen, that would be fantastic, and we can start a conversation. And for those, while we're getting them on screen as they come on, just like to say that Dr. Vidoll is the expert here, so he's going to probably be doing a lot of the conversation. I will fit in where I can and where I should, but we're going to let Dr. Vidoll lead the conversation. Now, first, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who have come on and taking time out of your positive, productive schedules to join with us today. I'll let Dr. Vidoll start the conversation. I'll certainly steer his ship, though he doesn't need any steering along the way. So, Dr. Vidoll, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, first let me make some opening comments to your audience. The names and the identities of these ladies who will be speaking have been intentionally concealed for their own safety and protection, as many of them are still working through their issues with the organizations at various levels. Some might very well be in litigation, some may be on at the stage where there are investigations that are going on. They may be on short or long-term leave. And so we want to be sensitive, and I want to be sensitive to these women who have bravely come out and accepted the invitation to talk about this important story. And I would say that this is an important story because we really haven't grappled with the degree and the depth of where this sits within um, the Canadian consciousness, and certainly the labor force. And so I want to acknowledge those women. As a matter of fact, I call them the Magnificent Five because of their bravery and their courage and their strength as women of color and Black women who have worked hard in their careers, who have ascended to this level, and yet still are experiencing these forms of aggressions within the workplace or trauma. Before we move and before we get to speaking to them, hearing their stories, I would like to share with you my own story. I worked for a major Canadian organization, pan-Canadian organization, that for some time thought that they were doing a really wonderful job of supporting women in the workforce, namely women on the ground floor. It so happens that a number of complaints that come to the organization that were not heeded to the point that those individuals took those complaints outside of the organization. And what happened was that the investigation revealed that there was a deliberate and clear intent on management and leadership to not address a growing problem specifically for women. And it identified women on the ground floor of the organization who were being targeted through sexual harassment, racial harassment. And in some instances, those women were coming to work in very violent settings, and nothing was being done. They could not quit because they had to provide for their families. They could not rely on their unions. They could not rely on management because of what ostensibly was complicity in this behavior. Needless to say, the investigation brought this matter to an independent investigation, brought matter to the forefront, and the organization had to take deliberate efforts to address the concerns within the organization. And I admit my own bias and my own lack of awareness, because as I had dealt with this, I thought, okay, fine, women at the ground level might be experiencing this, it's going to get resolved. But I never really thought about women in middle management, senior management, and in the C-suite who would be experiencing these kinds of issues until I was introduced to these ladies. And so I've had to rethink my own biases and what I assume about women who have ascended to this level and what they're able to manage and handle and deal with vis-a-vis my past experience. So having said that, I just wanted to lay the groundwork for you. No doubt there are many women out there who've experienced what these women are going to be talking about. So I just want us to get into this conversation. So I can't see everyone right now, but I know I have Ruth and PJ and Denise out there and Jonan. I'm wondering, PJ, if you can start by just telling us what sector you work in within the Canadian milieu, what your level was within the organization, and just a brief snippet of what you have been experiencing and where you're at right now.
So I'm in the financial sector. And in middle management, my role is a consultant. And what brought me to this conversation is I've been working with Dr. Vidoll for the past 2 years, 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I engaged Dr. Vidoll was because I was going through some workplace experiences that were not very healthy. Additionally, I was also going through some emotional turmoil, and I didn't know how to untangle myself, and ended up getting the guidance of Dr. Vidal to just try and navigate the workplace environment, my personal life, and my social life.
Thank you. And PJ, can you talk about the impact on you in terms of your health and your physical wellness, your emotional wellness, perhaps the impact of on your family, just so that the audience understands that this was not just about you, that others in your family and in your circle also experienced what we call vicarious stress or vicarious trauma.
I think the biggest thing that I want to just bring to the audience attention is that there's a constant reference to mental health, but I think it's not just mental. It's emotional, it's social, it's spiritual, it's physical. And
Mhm.
the unseen consequences of that is that women are by nature more resilient in the workplace than the credit that they're given. So we tend to take on things for a protracted length of time without reacting to them because of the generosity of femininity. We tend to give people the benefit of doubt. And as we give people the benefit of doubt, we take the weight of the negativity that's being um, perpetrated on us. But as we do that, we take that negativity away from the workplace into the societies that we exist in. So we have our church friends, we have our social friends, we have our children, we have our spouses. And naturally, when people, and I don't know if anybody on this audience has had a different experience, but I find every time I interact with people away from work, the first question that people usually ask me is, "How are you?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm okay," which is the natural answer, even if I'm not. And the next question becomes, how is work? And that alone means I can't dissociate my workplace experience from my social interactions. So now I have to either mask the negative work experience that I have, or I have to relive it by retelling my workplace trauma. And as a result, it's heavy. It burdens you. You think this is all just coming out of your mouth, but before you realize it is coming out of your heart, it's coming out of your soul, and eventually it weighs on your physique. So, speaking from personal experience, I know that when I first recognized that I was going through something, I remember talking to my oldest daughter, and I said, I didn't realize that my whole body is sore. Every part of my body, when I poke it with my finger, it feels sore. And she looked at me and she laughed and she said, "It's all the trauma that you tell us about."
Mhm.
And I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Because you think you are dealing with this mentally and emotionally, but your body, your physique is also dealing with that." And the moment I started untangling my experience talking to Dr. Vidor, I realized how many times during a working day, during an 8-hour working day, I needed to physically brace myself for the next punch. I needed to physically brace myself for the next emotional knockout because it's perpetual. I'm going through this trauma at work, but I'm thinking this is a mind game. But what I don't recognize in the moment that this is also a physical game. So
Mhm.
everything aches, everything hurts, but we don't process that because again, women, and I'm speaking from a female perspective, men may have a different perspective to this, but women tend to be more resilient when it comes to things that they feel they need to fight for. And I think Dr. Vidal said this in the beginning. We fight for the opportunity to keep our jobs so that we're able to provide for our family. So in my case, um, I'm a divorcee. I have 4 kids. My ex-husband is now late, so it's not like I have any support coming from elsewhere. And while I was going through some workplace trauma, I was also trying to put 3 kids through university. I've got 2 that have graduated. I have a young son who's just finished his study program, but I know that I was prioritizing the needs of my family before my personal needs. But in the same breath, I was taking a knocking.
PJ, I'm just wondering, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to the audience about this. And I want the audience to remember a couple of things, but these 2 things came to mind as you spoke. You talked about masking, this whole idea of performing in a role, knowing full well emotionally and deeply you were hurting, but you couldn't really talk to anybody about it. And the other thing is you talked about and you characterize it as workplace trauma. And it's time that we need to, I guess, create or accept the language that there is such a thing as workplace trauma. We individualize it by saying bullying, racism, and all of that. But really and truly, the impact on the individual is workplace trauma. And I want to also say that part of our conversations, my conversations with PJ, has been this turning point where we talked about personal power, and we'll get to that hopefully a bit later. But where does one find their own personal power to regain control over their own lives? So with that said, I want to move to Denise now. I'm wondering, Denise, if you can talk a little bit about, what sector of the labor force are you in without identifying in specifics? What role did you have? And just a little bit about what you've experienced.
Okay, so I was in middle management communications. That's basically where I was. I'm a financial person there. I do strategic planning. Pretty much, I think it was PJ that was before me. Pretty much I could so identify with what she was saying about the pain, because I had pain in every part of my body. I was overworked. They had gotten rid of one person, and our level of reporting is to the CIO. And I did not want the department to be looked at in a certain way. And this is how I've always been. It's like I feel I'm just the mother of these things, and I take on all of this because I know I can do it, and I don't want to belong to a team that's not performing. So I tend to take on a little bit more. But what I took on, what I asked for, I got twice as much. I got way too much. They just kept giving me more and more work, and I was getting physically drained. But as PJ said, my daughter saw it. She spoke to me. I wasn't listening. She reached out to my family, because it's just us here. So she reached out to my family back home, and they tried to speak to me. And I said, no, there's nothing wrong. I am fine. Everything is okay. I'm good. And they kept insisting, are you sure you're managing with work? How stressful is it? And I just said, no, because that's what we do. Right? That's what Black women do. That's what we do. We take everything on, and this is what we do. And I think what I did not realize, because we keep our heads down and we just perform. And I am an overachiever and I am an overperformer. So I know that. And that's not something I laud over anybody, but I have earned that. I can't, nobody can take that away from me because I've earned it. I've worked hard and I've studied, and this is my production. And the person that I was reporting to, after a while, I just got the impression that he was just upset that I was the one that knew everything, that I was the one that was carrying the team. I was the one that the senior management wanted to talk to. he would pick on me and just some little things, and he would try to embarrass me in the meetings when I tried to bring out a certain point. It was just no. And then after a while, I just got to the point where I just could not manage anymore.
And Denise, where did you end up? Did you end up off taking short-term leave, vacation time,
Right.
or termination? What happened?
So what happened to me was that, after we did our presentations, I do my presentations to the CIO. And after we finished one presentation, which was way in May, we do monthly presentations, he just called me into a room and just started to berate me. And I remember asking him, I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's something else you should be telling me, because I don't understand why you're talking to me like that. And he would not stop. He called me names that in my years of working, 35 years, nobody else has spoken to me like that. Absolutely not one person. And I just, I remember saying to him, I just want to understand why you think it is okay for you to come in here and speak to me like that. And I just sit here and take it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that to him, I didn't see him again. He literally got up and left me, and I thought he was coming back. And I just sat there, and he didn't come back.
Are you still employed there, or have you moved on?
No, I am not. So fast forward, I went off on short-term disability. Then I went to long-term disability, and then, the insurance company wanted to get me back to work. They asked me if I wanted to go back, and I said yes, but I had conditions. They were okay. They said I should tell them the conditions. I told them the conditions. I wanted a new team, a new manager, and I remember the case manager asking me if that is feasible. And I said, yes, I operate on my own. I'm really a standalone. I deal directly with the senior level management, so it's okay. And she put everything forward. I got a new manager, and I was to report to work. And when I reported to work the morning, of course it's COVID time, so reporting to work is at home, picking up the phone. And they asked me to be on a call because I had asked for a meeting with the senior management so I can let them know that I cannot afford to do this kind of work anymore. I cannot operate at that level. And I thought that was the meeting. So in 3 minutes, I was told I don't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in 3 minutes. This took 3 minutes. Hi, how are you? I'm good, thank you. As PJ said, that's what you always say. I'm good, thank you. And the conversation just went, well, I don't think this is not what you want to hear today, but your job has been eliminated and you no longer work for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As of today.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. And I thank you, Denise. And I want the listening audience to understand, and certainly those of us who have worked in large organizations, we understand those meetings where you're called by a supervisor into a special room that you very rarely have visited within the organization. Someone from HR shows up and you wonder, well, okay, this is how the story ends. And your boss leaves and HR gives you the message. And so this is what happens. And this is what happens to women who have contributed to the organization, who have done exceedingly well, credentialed ladies, and yet still they experience this kind of treatment. And of course, the subtlety is, of course, racism.
Yes.
There's no denying to this.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to add something because I think, and I don't know if I'm speaking for anybody else, but what I do know is that the target on our backs is because we know all of this. It is because we are overachievers, and it is because they want to put us in our place because we're not there. And they need to let us know that no, you are not. Yes, you know all of this. Yes, you can do all of this work, but you're not getting any credit for this. You're getting
So,
nothing.
thank you, Denise. And I'm going to get to the others shortly. But so when we talk about white supremacy, and there's been a lot of talk about that as of late. And yes, it's not white guys, in gowns with pointed cones. It's not about that. We're talking about systemic practices within organizations that says to individuals that when you work hard, you're working for us. And if you step out of line, we're going to show you that you can't step out of line. So unless you smoke, drink coffee with us at break, or golf with us, or go to the bar, to strip club, you're not part of us. But if you can do that, you're part of us. And so individuals who go to work and perform as they're expected to, according to their contracts, their job description, this is what happens to them within the organization. They're seen as not fitting or showing up, their bosses, and treated in this manner. And again, I believe that this is the tip of the iceberg, that we are seeing this. There's a swath of women, racialized women, Black women who are experiencing this depth of anti-Black racism within large institutions, whether it be financial sector, insurance sector, it could be the nonprofit sector, that are silent. And they're silent because they're dealing with this dual pressure and dual stress of being a caregiver, a nurturer within a home. I'm going to move to Ruth now for a few minutes and have Ruth speak on, again, just identify the sector, your role, and what happened. Where are you at now?
Hello, everyone. I'm previously from the financial sector. I was in middle management as a project manager. And I've been with this organization for almost 19 years by the time this turned around. I had not recognized initially what it was that was actually happening to me. I went through shock because I couldn't believe that senior leaders within this organization would behave in such an inhumane manner. I was a top performer all those years. I had gotten into this team for, I think I was in there just over 2 years by the time this happened. I had by this time work that I had done attributed to my boss, who happened to have been off sick at the time. It seemed that, other people were taking credit for my work. I was being sidelined. I had exited a project that I was on because that phase was over. And the senior manager had come to me to ask me to rejoin the team. And the first task that I undertook, it was an agile project, and the Scrum Master was quite impressed by what I had done. And without letting me know, the senior manager, the senior product owner, took the work that I had done and reassigned it to someone else. And when I needed information, he was not willing to, he was avoiding me. And when I went to his office to ask him what happened, he let me know that it had been, he had reassigned it. I confirmed that he had reassigned it. And I went to my boss and I said to my boss, I cannot go through this again. And he said to me, there was no respect. And I asked to be removed, and I was removed from the project. I found myself time and again going to the bathroom to cry. I had a hard time. I didn't recognize what I was experiencing, that I was going through anxiety. I didn't recognize that I was depressed because as a top performer, and being the type of person who sees adversity as a challenge. So as I'm going through experiences, whatever it is, it's a matter of, okay, how can I get around this? How can I grow from this? And so I would find a way. I'm very creative. And so, there's always something that I can do, I can think of to do. I had fantastic relationships with the folks with whom I worked, and it was hard for me to understand how I could be suddenly a problem person, because I was hearing over and over again from the management team that nobody wanted to work with me. And for me, as someone who had fantastic relationships with people, how could that possibly be? And it really got to me. So over time, like the depression, whole days where I can't focus on anything. My mind's usually quite sharp, and suddenly my mind's not sharp. It's like I'm looking at the same thing for the entire day, and I can't understand what it is that I am looking at. So reading became a problem for me. Focusing became a problem for me. And I couldn't understand it. When folks say to you or say to us that we should bring our whole selves to work, that is now a challenge for me, because I brought my whole self to work. I brought all my creativity, all my integrity, everything to work. And I brought it there only to be destroyed. Because when you open up yourself like that, you're quite vulnerable. And I was quite vulnerable. And the good thing about it is that I never let this it didn't give me permission to behave badly. So I didn't lose my cool ever in that situation. I was always, respectful. To me, it had to be a misunderstanding. But the blatant untruths that were told, were quite shocking, still are quite shocking to me. I have, my family having to deal with that with me. I had created a program that had to do with employee experience. And within 2 weeks of that program going live, I was off it. I was told that my brand was not good enough to be on that program, and I was off it. So it's recognizing that my brain is great, right? So you have all this talent, but I am not deserving of the talent that I have, that there are other people who are more deserving, and those people just happen to be white. So let's give those people the credit for the work that I am creating. And let's just, because I was threatened with demotion, so let's just put her off to a corner and have her continue to produce while we take credit for this. And when you're looking at organizations that publicly say that they represent all this great things, that they're supportive of their people, and now you're faced with the reality that in fact they're not. They're supportive of their favorites. That the bias in a lot of cases is not unconscious, that it is a conscious bias. When you can decide that someone is not deserving, that someone who can say, this is what we need to do, and they're going to go with what you're saying, but turn around and say, okay, no, we're not going to say that you said this or that you did this. We're going to say that this person did this. And you're supposed to just sit there and continue to produce. Is unheard of. So
Ruth, I'm just wondering, Ruth, if and you've done something really well, and that was articulating out the impact of racial trauma. And I just want to put it for the audience's sake, and don't blame me, it's a widely accepted definition of racial trauma, but it goes like this: stress that is cumulative based on racism that affects one's mental, physical health, and has been linked to feelings of anxiety, depression, and in some instances, suicidal ideation. That is the reality of what we and these women have encountered within middle and senior management within organizations. And Ruth has articulated well what those symptoms are: the isolation, the second guessing, doubting your ability, the loss of confidence, the loss of esteem, not feeling as though you are welcomed as a team. Yes, and a healthy paranoia. You walk into the office every day and you don't know who's on your side. You don't know who you can have coffee with, who you can talk to. That is a reality. And then you go home and have to function within your family setting. I'm wondering, Ruth, if you could take us to the place of, did you go off work Were you terminated? Have you sought medical attention? Is there legal action or action that you're taking with your employer? If you can just focus on that before we get to Joanne.
Okay. So I was fired back in March. I am taking legal action. Um, and just so I think it's very important for folks to understand that they do have rights, because it took me a long time to get to that point. It's recognizing, because when you're so loyal to the organization, it is unthinkable that, for you to think that, you're going to do this. Because I thought I would retire from this organization. That's, the level of my loyalty. So I did seek mental health assistance, so medical assistance. Like I said, I struggled. I still struggle to some degree with the fact that I need to have this type of assistance, because especially in my culture, having mental health issues is something that is frowned upon. We're just starting to get accustomed to, or to accept it, that, this is definitely a need. So yes, I am seeking mental health assistance, and that has really helped me to accept that, I am human, and there is a lot of what the response that I've had is normal, considering the abuse that I was experiencing.
So we're talking about racial trauma, moral injuries, the insults, the indignities, the microaggressions, the biased treatment that is occurring to these women and other women within organization. And I want the audience to know, again, I call these women magnificent, because they've had the bravery and the courage to come out from where they are and to say, I'm going to say something about this, because it's important for others to know, others to understand it's a reality, and that they are not alone. That is key for your listening audience, Dr. Vibe, that they realize, and these women realize as well as others, that they are not alone, and you do not have to suffer in silence anymore. What I would like, and I would desire, and again, I speak from a male perspective and a Black male perspective, are all those white women who have succeeded in corporate Canada, who have ascended to those levels of leadership and senior roles, for them to take stock of where they are and ask the question, who have they brought along with them? Who have they supported on their journey of success? That's an important question. But I want people to understand that these women speaking up, this is about their health. This is part of their ongoing healing, learning, and the need for them to grow and to thrive. And so this is not simply a matter of taking up your Sunday afternoon and having a conversation over tea, but talking about something that's deeply ingrained within this Canadian psyche, and certainly within the Canadian labor force, that we are not talking about. Joanne, if I can switch to you, and ladies, I thank you. We're going to hopefully get a few minutes to have a free-for-all, but I'm wondering, Joanne, if you can again talk about where you are within your organization, what role you hold, and what your experiences have been.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me. I work for a union, a very large union that has members right across the country. And I just want to, first of all, acknowledge that, as Vidoll said earlier, this is we're going through a state where we are not only having a lack of mental wellness, but I am starting to feel that it's becoming an epidemic. So I work for a union. The union is supposed to be an organization that represents all workers. I would say to you that the leadership in my union does not reflect who I am, or reflect people that look like me, or reflect people from the Indigenous community. The leadership is sadly lacking in that. All policies and all decisions are made by the leadership. So you can understand that if we're not represented there, what happens? As a woman who works in this organization, I represent many, many people who are Black, Indigenous, and of color. I represent them in their workplaces. I experience some of their trauma. That's part of the job. But when I start to experience trauma within the workplace, the union that I work for, and I experience racism, the members would be shocked. So I'll give you some examples of some of the things that have happened in my workplace. I was in a meeting last Tuesday to talk about the fact that myself and another worker, another Black woman, was threatened with talking about racism within the workplace. We were threatened that you should not be biting the hand that feeds you. So basically, we're supposed to just go to work and absorb it and say nothing about it. This happened some time ago, but we were talking about it recently, explaining how that trauma affected us, how it cost us sick leave and so forth, and what the financial implications are, and how you never ever feel safe, even though you're supposed to be working for a progressive organization. You go to work, I go to work many days, and as my vehicle turns in, I feel the physical change in my body, in my mindset. My feet, my footsteps are heavy. I don't want to be there because of what I'm subjected to. The microaggressions are real. They're extremely real. There are people who will walk up to me and say, it's your job to tell me when I'm saying something racist. And there are times when you push back and you say, listen, I'm not your mother. I am not responsible for your behavior. I will not do that. Then, of course, you're deemed difficult and you're now working with everybody and you're racist. They always try to tell you that you're the one who is being racist. In my work, because of the nature of the work and because of what I experience in the workplace, I try to compartmentalize because I have 3 children that I'm raising. I'm raising my 3 grandchildren. And it is not easy raising 3 Black children in this society, in this day and age. We had an incident just a couple of hours ago where one of them was on the road and somebody called him a nigger. Totally unacceptable, but it happened, which almost led to some serious violence. But I have to deal with that. I can't. There's no place to turn as you maneuver in this society, working, representing, dealing, and finding. I will say that even though I work for a union, every day I go to work knowing that today could be the last day. I could be, somebody can say that today is the last day because I've said something or I didn't do something that they wanted me to do. I'm going to share 2 examples of what it's like to be working in a progressive organization. And they're unreal. So the first example I'm going to share is I'm representing somebody who is a worker who applied to took part in a competition for an elevation from one position to another, a promotion basically, and failed by 1.5 marks, and was told that she did not answer a question correctly. The board was made up of 3 people, and two of the people present at the board said she answered the question. The chair of the board said she didn't answer the question, and so she didn't get the 1 mark. And somebody who was not from the region, who had never done any of the work, but who was white, got the job. Mm-hmm. And so these are some of the systemic racism that we face within the organization. I'll give you another one. Mm-hmm. 2 men in Montreal came to work one day and found hate mail telling them that they were hired because they were Black. Mm-hmm. and that was the only reason they had the job. I have members that I represent who tell me to my face that I am there because of the way I look and the way I sound, and I took their job. And I was never in a designated position. So these are just some of the conditions I work under.
Thank you, Joanna. And I really appreciate you sharing. And you work in an organization or in a system where the rights of individuals should be elevated to the top. The rights of
Yep.
the individual, respect, dignity, and so on. And yet still, this is what you're personally experiencing and your colleagues of color are experiencing.
Yeah.
I want to just pause it for a moment here and say to the listening audience, we have a false notion in Canada, and this is the notion that we live within a meritocracy, that based on your credentials, your work ethic, your experience, you being the best candidate, you get the job. That's bunk. That's nonsense. And I think the data is showing that more and more. Yes, by and large, those who identify themselves as African Canadian have more credentials on a per capita basis than those who represent the dominant culture, Caucasians, yet still high levels of unemployment. So this notion of a meritocracy is false. It's a false notion. The other thing that I want to identify is this use of language, and Joanne speaks to systemic racism and how it gets embedded. You know, when you think about racism, you think about structurally systems, you think about policies and practices that people take for granted, that as though they're right and they're just simply there for the sustaining of the organization, irrespective of how unfair they may be to individuals. But then there's a subtext to that. We use language at times to buttress those systems. Language such as has been identified here. Don't bite the hand that feed you. So in other words, watch yourself because we're doing you a favor. Or stay in your lane is another one that I've heard. The other one is don't rock the boat. So this notion of bringing your full self to work and being accepted for that, for women, Black women, women of color in large Canadian organizations is not a reality. And again, I underscore that this is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. We haven't really gone below the surface to see what's really happening, because we talk about this from a very broad perspective, but really don't unpack who's being affected and who's not being affected by this. I know we're running short of time. I want to just open it up. Go ahead,
Dr. Vidoll. I just want to jump in for a moment. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for each one of you ladies for being brave and courageous and doing the right thing. Also, if you can stay a little bit past a few minutes off the top there, because I have some conversation questions I would like to have your input on, but if you have to leave at the top of the hour, I fully understand. So my first question would be, either in the organizations you're in or you used to work in, were there any culturally sensitive supports provided to you?
Okay, I would say no. So the organization, it's large, and they do talk about diversity, but there was no direct support for anybody that looks like me. Nobody that looks like me were at a senior level. That's not. That was never there. So, and there's no support. There's no understanding of us and what we go through.
Any other ladies want to chime in there?
I'll chime in. As I said, my organization is a large organization. It's national. And I will say to you that the board of directors is a total of about 20 people. There's one person of color on that organization, on that board. And so, and we have great policies like you would not believe it. We win great cases. And I liken it to You work out there, you do the work, you represent, you make history, but inside you come in and you get your ass kicked, you get beaten. Right? So we're abused inside, but we do a really good job outside.
Oh,
All right. And
I'm just
go ahead.
I'm just going to jump in here. I think there's a myth that when we have Black people in organizations that perpetrate workplace injustices, there's representation. In my organization, there's quite a handful of Black people who are in positions where they could make a difference. Um, one of them happens to be my senior executive, and the sad part is she was in the loop of all my workplace experiences, but she didn't step up to the plate. So we must also not forget that people who are in positions of power and they look like us may be looking out for their personal interests rather than addressing the issues that are actually coming up, because there may be tokenism at play, or they're just more grateful that they made it this far. They're the crab that got out of the bucket, or they just feel that they don't want to rock the boat again. I think the other expression that was used was "don't bite the hand that feeds you." They don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. Um, so it's frustrating, like for a better word, because in my case, the racism wasn't blatant. It wasn't blatant. It was right there. And the microaggressions, the language that was used was clearly racist. But again, there is no support that is available to you if your own executive looks like you and is aware of what you're experiencing, but they don't want to address the issues. What do you think people of other racial backgrounds would do, even if you have allies in an organization? How do they step over another Black person not addressing the experiences of another Black person who is experiencing racism?
All right. Um, I have another question, another two or three questions. Again, I know it could be time sensitive, but if you can stay on, please stay on. What are your thoughts about all these organizations over the last few months now saying they want to address diversity? They're putting in programs for diversity. What are your thoughts? Because I'm skeptical, but I'd like to get your in each one of your inputs because you're there or you have been there. Are you
But
optimistic?
I think
no.
what
this
Vidoll,
does not mean anything. This is Ruth speaking.
I
It
think
means
so
nothing.
everybody has
You
something to
cannot,
say.
yes, you cannot have the people that are causing the abuse responsible for the program. If the folks who are going through the abuse, who are having all these negative experiences, have a say, if there is consequence to the people that are doing this, then you may have a change. But if you're having a senior leader who is abusive, and the senior leader is the one that's signing up for this thing and saying they're going to do it, they're in control of the message. They're in control of what is going out there in the public, while inside the organization, the employees are suffering.
I,
So all of that,
I
none of that means that, I've seen some of it. None of it means anything, and especially having gone through this experience and seeing firsthand what can happen. Um, there's no trust. There will be no change in 10 years. At this rate, we will be repeating without them having a consequence that they cannot control. It is important that they not be able to control it. So it's like saying the employees have some kind of organization externally where they're rating them, as opposed to having them say, okay, I'm doing this wonderful thing. If we're not able to hold them accountable, nothing will change.
I think the point is very valid, because most of these organizations that are pledging to shifting the conversation from racism to anti-racism in the workplace, and equal opportunities and equal compensation and fair career progression, they have always had this in their mission statements. So this is not breaking news. They always had this. What would be different now that they couldn't have done over the years that they've been in existence. Every organization that we have seen put the Black Lives Matter slogan on their Twitter and their black screens and putting out press statements out there. If you go to their job boards, one, they don't have Black representation in those organizations that matches the proportion of Black people in Canada. Secondly, every job posting that they have pledges that they treat people equally. But people that actually work for them today and that have worked for them since their existence are experiencing unfair treatment in the workplace. So what would change now? And who is going to hold them accountable? Where is the audit that all these things that they're saying they're going to do, who is going to actually make sure that they have done them? Like the previous speaker said, you are asking the abuser to police his own abuse.
Mm-hmm. So, PJ, you're finished? I just want to make.
I'm done, yes.
Okay. So, I echo both Ruth and PJ's point, but here's the thing that really bothers me. They're asking us to come up with a solution for what they have been doing to us continually. That I can't understand. You sit there, you look at your structure, and if I look at it, I see 10 vice presidents, 15 senior vice presidents, I see nobody that looks like me. And now you are asking me to come in and tell you what to do. That's what I grapple with. You have done it to me. You continue to do it to me. And now you want me to tell you that you're doing it to me? No, you already know that. So you need to fix yourself and your ideals. How I feel about it is that this is letting them still be in control of us and what we bring, right? Because they're asking us to bring it to them. So they know what we're talking about. They know exactly what to do.
And Denise, you raise a very good point. What is really happening now within, if you see online or look online social media, with a lot of the anti-racist work or anti-oppression work, anti-black racism work, is those practitioners are outward saying to white people, don't ask me, go and read, go and learn. Think about what it is you're doing, and then let's have a conversation. And so there's great value in what you're saying, and that is to hold people accountable for learning themselves, so that they're not learning as a result of you telling them, but really they've gone through their own journey of unpacking their own bigotry, their own racism, their own unconscious bias, and recognizing that there is a need for them to do things differently for their organization without asking employees and working with employees to bring about those changes. If I can just for 1 second, as we're just thinking about this, accountability is key. And I thought to myself, if organizations were to bring in other resources, other organizations that did this work and worked alongside with them, greater accountability would probably occur. So you want to be serious about this? Call Black Lives Matter and have them sit on your board and work with you on an anti-Black racism strategy within the organization.
Well, I just want to add though, I think more organizations, definitely Black Lives Matter, but a number of various organizations, not only from Black Lives Matter, but also community organizations. Because my next question or comment would be to the ladies: what impact is this situation not only having on you as individuals, Black families, and Black community? What effects is this happening? Because this has been going on for a long time, but it only seems to be intensifying and amplifying. What effects do you feel this is happening on the whole Black community?
Well, if you look at, for example, the financial part of it, so you are summarily dismissed. First of all, you're not paid what you're worth. You're paid a lot less than what you're worth. So there is the financial part of it. There is the psychological part of it. So you feel that, okay, I'm going to be working so hard to move my family forward. You're not able to be there for your family from a psychological perspective, right? So what's leading it to is if you can't function within your family, so from a family, from that perspective, your family can't function, so your children might be negatively impacted.
Yeah.
And so you're not able to carry on in a progressive manner. So it's really setting our people back, right? And it's intentional, right?
Yes.
So that's a big part of what I see. I see the financial impact. I see the psychological impact because let's face it, psychological safety does not exist for us. You know, when they tell us that we're too direct, but they can say anything to us,
Exactly.
right? There's a double standard there, right? They can speak to us disrespectfully. We're not going to speak to them that way, but we're going to be direct in our approach, and we're going to ask for what we need. And they're going to tell us we're too direct, we're too strong, we're too, you know, it's like we hear this mad black woman scenario, which is not real, right? It's because they cannot handle the fact that we are strong and we know what we're about. You know, we're very ambitious. We want to get ahead, and we care pretty much because for me in the workplace, I was like the mom in the workplace because, you know, a number of the young people would come to me, right? So my influence was building, right? So if you look at that positivity that we could have is taken away. And if you look at repeating that cycle over and over again, that is ensuring that when our children get into the workplace, they're going to again go through the same thing. So even when I look at what the solution could possibly be, it's not just a matter of the side by side with somebody from Black Lives Matter. It is also ensuring that our young people are equipped. So they're not going into the workplace blind. What is their entry strategy into the workplace? We need to ensure that they are equipped going into the workplace so they know that these are the types of behaviors that you can expect, and this is how you should be responding. This is what your rights are. You know, this is the other side of how we ensure that from our perspective, our young people can be successful.
They know the rules of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very important. Very important.
I think
I just
Ruth
wanted to,
articulated out. Go ahead, Joanne.
I just wanted to, I didn't answer the first question. I just wanted to say I am very suspicious of the sudden awareness that has come about in many organizations about the value of Black lives or even racism. The other thing I wanted to, Vidoll started off by saying that they need to invite organizations to be there. I would say they need to actually get up and stop taking spaces that they're not qualified to be in. They need to share power. And until they do, and recognize that they do need to take space at the table, we are not going to move forward. And I worry about the younger generation having to fight the same battles that we fought, which makes me very sad because we should be able to ensure that when we move forward and we leave this time, progress has happened, and I am not feeling that we are there yet.
No, we're not, Joan.
During these challenging times for you ladies, who have been some of your best allies? And you don't have to give them by name, but just, and you may even want to use pseudonyms. I know Dr. V has been a great ally. He's a great ally to many of us. But when you're not hanging with Dr. V, how do you I'm a firm believer, in order to get through, you got to go through. Who or what is helping you go through?
Friends and family.
Yeah.
Certainly. Right? So
friends and family.
Yeah, friends and family for sure.
Yes.
This was a great time for me to find out how much my friends really cared. I am very, very fortunate because I don't think I would be. Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional.
Okay.
I don't think I would be here if it weren't for them. My husband has been certainly there for me. And it's really scary sometimes because he panics when I call him if he's not home because he's afraid that I'm doing something. So to be in a space where you're so dependent, you need these people, and they're willing to be there for you. Because I'm accustomed to being there for other people, and to find myself in a position where I absolutely need everybody that's in my corner right now, and I value all of them, and they know how much I love them. To know that they're there, it's invaluable. So, to all my friends and my family who've been there for me, so much gratitude. And to the therapists that have been a part of my journey, so much gratitude.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for being brave. You're in a safe space here, so thank you for your braveness.
I just want
I
to say
think, yeah, go ahead.
myself, I have a great group of women around me. We take care of each other. And I think that's how we've been able to get through some of the most trying and painful things in our personal lives as well as in our work lives. But you need those women. And I think that has been handed down to us from centuries. We take care of each other
Mhm.
and we're functioning.
Absolutely.
So, so with me, I have a group of friends, but it it started simply with just us. So this is the end product, but it started simply with one girl who likes to go out, and she said, I just want to have a Zoom night, maybe every 2 weeks with some good ladies. So she said to some of us, give us some names. And it started with wine. And I'm telling you, this every 2 weeks, this
Nice.
has, and these girls, I am not close to all of them, I'm only close to the person that made the call to me, right? And it has developed to 2 weeks of drinking, maybe 2 bottles of wine per person, to the point where we work out 6 days a week,
Nice.
7:30 in the morning. I plan the program, right? We have water challenges. We have plank challenges. We have squat challenges. This is disbelief. I'm
Can I
working
can
with
I can I be
ladies.
part of that group? I need to lose
Sure.
some pounds.
Listen, let me tell you, I'm working with a group of people. Some of them have never seen a gym.
Right.
And that's what. And there's one girl in there, she has never opened up. I've known her from university way back in the day. And the things that she is expressing, it's, I'm in disbelief as to what I'm hearing. So that is what, so, that's what we have to get, a good group of ladies. Sorry, Dr. Vibe. You can put on a wig.
I've always thought about doing that.
But it's really good, and there are days that I sit down at home and I cry
Mhm.
because I can't believe what, because this is making me get up every day. Yeah,
Yeah, good stuff.
and I'm a strong person.
Well, you're all strong women, remarkably strong women. I was sharing with Dr. Vibe that I was pleasantly surprised when I had asked all of you to participate, and I didn't think that you would because of where you are in your lives and what you're struggling with. And to my surprise, unanimously, you all said yes.
Hey, Dr. V, come on. Black women surprise you? You haven't been around long enough, Dr. V.
Yes,
I
that's
need to
right.
counsel you on black women if you say that.
Yes, in comparison to you, yes, I am much younger. No, but what I meant was in view of your personal stories and where you're at with perhaps even litigation, complaints going on, because there's some other women, there's about 3 other women who wanted to be here tonight, but because of where they're at with their ongoing dispute with their employers, they've decided not to, but wanted to be here and they're probably here online in a variety of sectors, and from the
Yes.
insurance sector and from education and healthcare. So I'm sensitive to that. But again, it's the miraculousness of your character and your resolve, not only to talk about your story, but also to help other women of color, Black women, understand that they do not need to be alone, that this is a reality, it's an experience that you're having. It doesn't define you, it doesn't define your future, and it's something that you will get through with the support of family and friends and hopefully less wine. Let me say less wine.
So,
Please, less wine.
less wine. We drink water now. But
Okay.
I wanted to add this, which was very interesting because my daughter bought me a board because I'm just a worker. I just go in and I work, and I look after my friends. And she bought me this vision board, and she said to me in January, she gave me some things that she thought I should be doing. I've never done them, painting and stuff like that. And that was before COVID. And I wrote down 3 goals. And the first one, to lose weight. That's what we ladies always do. But the third one that I wrote down was to find a group of women that I could identify with. And I wrote down things like maybe a book club, maybe hiking, maybe going to spa days. And I just jot down those little things. And a couple weeks ago, I went back to the board and I said, OMG, there's my group. There's my group of ladies. And we started with wine and venting. That's it. To the point where it's yoga, high intensity workout. How many gallons of water do you drink a day? Sometimes I can't fathom what this is. Yeah.
Well, we could go on for a
Yes, we
while,
could.
but I know that everyone, time is precious. I just like to say to all of the ladies on here, thank you so much for who you are and who you're going to be, and realize that your impact is bigger than you. And Dr. Vidoll said earlier on, the message to ladies, this resonates with Black people, male, female, or whatever they want to describe themselves gender-wise, because a number of months ago, a very close associate of mine said, every Black person needs a therapist. Because
Yes.
we go through a lot inside the corporate world, outside the corporate world, just daily life. So I would like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your positive, productive lives. I would like to put it out there that in a few months we come back and do this again to see where things are and the lessons learned, not only by yourselves but for others, because we have to educate ourselves in this area. Because for many of us, Black people, the workplace is a battleground, and we need to be equipped for battle.
Yes.
And we have 4 great soldiers, generals here, who can help us equip ourselves for battle. I'm going to just ask Dr. Vidoll to give some final thoughts to our audience, and then we'll close it down. So Dr. Vidoll, if you have some closing thoughts for our audience, please.
I want the audience to understand this above all, that our personal power is crucial to our identity. And when we take stock of who we are designed to be, as magnificent human beings entitled to be treated with respect and to be dignified, we come to a place where we take our clear position in this world. These women that you have heard speak today are brave, courageous, and their lives will go on, and they will do amazing things in this country, for this country, and for their families, and for their communities. Our work here is to continue to have the conversation. One, that you don't have to be alone. Two, it's healthy to speak about it. And three, if we can find a time to connect with one another, we can do great things to build and strengthen our communities, not just for those of us who are working in corporate sector, but also for our sons and our daughters who are graduating from college and universities, who are going into the workplace so that they can be prepared. That's an asset that we have that isn't financial in nature, but is experientially based. So believe in the bravery, believe in the stories, believe in the courage of these women today, and take some of that with you and spread the word that corporate Canada needs to change, and change for Black women in these roles and women of color so that they truly feel valued and at home and safe. And I think that is it for me, Dr. Vidoll. I look forward to the opportunity to come back again.
The pleasure's mine, Dr. Vidoll. Thank you so much for making this epic conversation happen. I don't know if we can get it up before we leave, but if my producer can get his your contact information up, we'd surely like if people have any question, comments, inquiries, to please contact him. I am Dr. Vibe. I am host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I am the 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. One of the things I want to share with before we leave is a number of months ago, I was watching an interview with Robert Smith. It's a Black American man. He's actually the richest Black American, period. He has a personal wealth of over $5 billion. And he was being interviewed during this time, and he had, do you have a message for Blacks out there? He said, don't waste this crisis. So I'm encouraging wherever you are in the journey, especially in 2020, do not waste this crisis. So as I check out here, I'd like to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. And I don't know if we'll be able to get the information, so I'm going to say it verbally. Dr. Vidoll can be reached at dr.knowledgesolution6@gmail.com. So that's dr.knowledgesolution6@gmail.com. And his phone number is 416-676-6891. As always, I'd like to thank BIA Media for the epic production. God bless, peace be well, walk good, and keep the faith. Goodbye, everybody.
And limit the brown bottles, ladies. Limit the wine, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.